What is up, Heat Seekers? Listen, first round rookie picks are so valuable. You can't afford to miss on them. Who are the first round rookie picks that are booms and bust potential this year? Let us know in those comments below. This 1QB, 1-round rookie mock was done by 10 of RotoHeat's best. The analysts have their ideas, their thoughts here. Let's get to it.
101, Breece Hall, running back, Iowa State.
So the question is, do you agree with the analysts? Is running back scarcity in this draft class going to push running backs up? Most years in 1QB situations, running back tends to be the king, and you'll see running backs go in the top 5. You'll see 1, maybe 2, depending on who's up there drafting. But this draft, maybe more so than others, that conversation seems to be pretty prevalent. But even though when you look at this analyst comments, Treylon Burks was his #1 guy, he still went running back at the 1 spot. Would you do that in your situation?
102, Treylon Burks, wide receiver, Arkansas.
As you can see here, the guy that we just talked about, his potential for the #1 pick, slid to #2 and didn't slide very far. So the analyst was a huge fan of Burks' catch radius and so many other of the it factor that makes Burks one of the most intriguing options in this rookie class. I think most likely you'll see him go in one of the first couple picks just because that size-speed combination. Obviously, we need to see the combine and see what all unfolds there, but Burks is a really intriguing prospect, and I think you're going to see him fall into the 1, 2, 3, definitely within the top 5 in most formats. The running backs will be the interesting thing. How many of the running backs that showed well pushed their way into this conversation? That'll be interesting.
103, Kenneth Walker III, running back, Michigan State.
Speaking of interesting, Kenneth Walker III at the 1-3 spot is very interesting because you'll see the analysts talk about how much he likes and how much he's been on the Walker bandwagon, but Walker produced strong numbers in his 1 season at Michigan State. Now, obviously at Wake Forest, it was a little bit different situation, but Michigan State used him to the best of his ability, and we saw it on the field. I mean, he dominated week in and week out. Does that make him a top 5 rookie pick in fantasy? Maybe. It'll be very interesting to see how he falls in the draft and where he falls. Is he the #1 running back? Some are saying that he is the best back in this class. If so, that makes him most likely in the top 3 to 5, maybe 7 overall total, depending on your league structure.
104, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State.
Wilson falling into the 1-4 spot is where he lands in the draft, I think will help determine where he falls in rookie drafts. Now, obviously, our analyst here was super excited about him falling to the 1-4 and loves his route running abilities and his hands and so many things that make wide receivers, RotoHeat wide receivers. We love route runners. We love really good route runners. That doesn't always mean they're going to hit. We got a few of those that haven't hit that were great route runners. The thing that's great about Wilson is that he can be a big play threat. He can do the route running. He can do so many different things that make him valuable. Now, if he goes to a team where he can get early playing time and doesn't have to work into it, but maybe just walks into a starting role because of draft capital, that'll be huge in rookie drafts.
105, Drake London, wide receiver, USC.
Seeing Drake London go at the 1-5 is different. You've heard a lot of people talk about so many of these wide receivers pushing their way into the first round conversation, and Drake London's kind of been one that's been all over the place, but you'll see our analyst loves his well-rounded skill set. You saw at his time at USC when Amon-Ra now made it to the Lions and got to the NFL, London took over as that #1 option and showed out well. And I think, just like our analysts thought, landing spot probably doesn't matter with a guy like this because he can be a team's red zone threat. He can be an outside receiver that's physical and goes up and gets the ball and does some of those things. So he's one of those prospects that maybe he becomes a can't-miss type prospect when you're looking for safer draft picks here because of injuries and all that. London's a fairly safe pick.
106, Isaiah Spiller, running back, Texas A&M.
Craig nailed it on the head at 1-6 with Isaiah Spiller. The thing that we love about our running backs is that pass-catching ability. And Spiller has shown at his time at A&M that he can do all those things. He can be the big, physical, hard runner, but he can also be a pass catcher. In fantasy, that really becomes king when you're looking at who goes #1 overall or who goes as your top running back overall. In a 1QB format, if you told me Isaiah Spiller was the 1-1 over Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, wouldn't surprise me because we know there's some questions with those other guys just because the teams haven't done it as much as Spiller was involved. So Spiller, I think, will be an X factor as we push to rookie drafts, and I'm really interested to see what that looks like for his value and his potential draft value in rookie drafts.
107, Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State.
As you can tell by our analysts, He says this is the best route runner in the class. That is a question that I want to see us debate in the comments below and in all of our chats, because I think some would have a different opinion about the best route runner. Olave definitely has proven it. He's been in the lineup and been a regular player in that Ohio State offense for a while now, and definitely looks like the most pro-ready wide receiver to come out in this class. But what does that mean for fantasy value? You can be the best pro-ready receiver and still not be super fantasy relevant. Does that make him a 1-7 pick? Does he fall lower? When I watch Olave, I see shades of like an Amon-Ra type guy, so that's where I'm looking at him at, is Amon-Ra type player where you're going to get a ton of catches, a really solid amount of yardage, maybe not so much the touchdown production. Where do you value that at? Is that late first round value? Is that early second round value? Is that top 10 value? Good question.
108, Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama.
Seeing Jameson Williams at the 1.8 is a great spot for him because Dez says electric speedster. And this guy has got wheels. The question that we have to think about in this conversation is he could beat out Garrett Wilson. He could beat out Chris Olave. So he had to leave and go to Bama to get starting time at the receiver position. But once he got there, he showed he can destroy defenses. He can do it all. But what does that mean for longevity, fantasy production? Obviously, we know we're dealing with the injuries. He's got to bounce back from, so it'll take a little time. He'll probably fall in NFL draft a little bit just because of that. But that could be a steal for somebody, a team that's looking for receiver help that could sit and let him heal up and get ready. That could be a huge get for a contender or somebody who's having to replace receiver that maybe left in free agency. Jameson Williams could be one of those guys that pushes his draft stock up, even though he's hurt because of landing spot.
109, David Bell, wide receiver, Purdue.
The guy who went at 1.9, David Bell, has been a Devy darling for a very long time. This is a guy that's been, if you're in the Devy circle, in the Devy community, in the Devy world, you've known his name, and he's probably been on your roster or been a target of yours because the potential's there. Obviously, Jason here does a few things. So he says he would rather have Jameson, but he got sniped. He also compared him to Justin Jefferson, which is, I want to see the chat blow up about that. I want to see you guys in the comments. Is David Bell poor man Justin Jefferson? I know Jason said he wasn't comparing, but you can't name drop and not see a comparison. I don't know that I would go that far. You know, if I'm looking for a comp, I'm thinking Rashad Bateman type guy because he's got a very similar skill set, at least from what I've seen. And I like the player. I think late 1, early 2 is probably where you see him. Landing spot could obviously, with a lot of these receivers, be a big help or hurt. What do you think about Bell?
110, John Mechie, wide receiver, Alabama.
So this is me at the 110, and I took one of my favorite receivers in this class, and that's John Mechie III. Another injured receiver that's coming out. He played for Bama. He is, in my mind, one of the better receivers in the class because he can do a lot of the things. He's a solid route runner. Not the best route runner. Don't Chris Olave me here, but he's a solid route runner. He's a big play threat. He will bounce back from the injury and should be perfectly fine and ready. Watching him at Bama develop over time, I think he's that next really good Bama receiver to come out. And I want to get a piece of that because a lot of Bama receivers that have come out over the last few years have been really good NFL players and really good fantasy producers. So Mechie, for me, makes sense as a late first-round pick. You're thinking, I'm a playoff team, want to add depth that could develop over time. Mechie fits that, and so does the next guy that comes up.
111, Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, Penn State.
Up is Jahan Dotson. He's one that, when I talk to guys and when I talk to a lot of different people that look into these prospects, it seems a bit up and down. For a while there, we were focused more on Devy Jahan Dotson. People were super excited about him, and then it's cooled off a little. But then you look at what Penn State's been as a team. The quarterback play hasn't been amazing. It hasn't been terrible, but it has been amazing. And I still love Dotson's size, speed, all of his athletic skill set really is intriguing to me. I think the next level, you could see him be flexed in and out. The way teams are starting to use receivers, you think of your Debos and Amon-Ra's of the world where they're using them in running situations. They're trying to get them the ball out in space and do some creative things. Dotson looks like that type of guy. So if I can get that type of player late 1, early 2, I'm going to do it and see what happens.
112, Tyler Algier, running back, BYU.
Pick 12. This is a guy that if you've been a RotoHeat customer for a while, I believe I wrote up an article on Tyler Algier as a guy that I thought would be a name to watch out for in this upcoming draft, maybe even back last summer. He's one of those guys that he has the ability to be a pass catcher out of the backfield. He has, and you're seeing Jason's comments. Jason talks about trying to decide between a receiver and a running back here. I think some of these running backs are getting underrated. There's some really intriguing prospects in this draft, and Algier is one of those. Seeing him go at the back half of the first round does not surprise me in the least. If you can get him late first, early second, he could be one of those guys that gets you some solid production, and sooner rather than later. There's enough need for running backs in the NFL now that there's plenty of guys that are in this draft that have a well-rounded skill set that could be a very good help to a team and your fantasy roster. That wraps up round one of our first rookie mock of 2022. Let us know in the comments below who busted. If you want to see more great content from the RotoHeat team, check out our rookie profiles. They're right here. You can check them out, see what the team thinks about the rookies that are coming up. RotoHeat.com for more great rookie content. We'll see you in the next one.